person, maybe something a little bit special about them, and they're in their world. This is the status quo. This is our starting point. Pretty soon they receive a call to adventure. So this could be a problem. This could be something that they need to get in order to uh, move forward, right? Or change the world, perhaps. And also, if you apply this to the learning cycle, this might be the question, right? There's a question we need to answer. So we need to go on a voyage to get answers, right? To gain knowledge. We need to cross the threshold. So at the threshold, they've left their placid world and they've entered into the unknown. They could get helpers, sidekicks. They could gain a mentor. They'll definitely go through challenges and temptations, that make them harder. And if we apply this to the learning journey, this could be your, researching, making connections to prior learning, connecting with people that can give you knowledge, right? So this is where you're gathering more and more knowledge. And so through that process, they get so far in that they reach the abyss. And, this is where they could have a death, but then a miraculous rebirth. You could even go biblical on this, right? And the revelation is what they bring forth from that. They bring back some knowledge. And also, if you want to apply this to the learning journey or the learning cycle, this is what we could call the learning pit. I know my son has used that at TKS. So this is there, you've done all your research, but you're just not getting it. Something's not clicking, but then you find something that changes your thinking, that moves your thinking forward, and you transform. And atonement is kind of in the hero's journey. That's where they make up for what they were doing wrong in the past using their new information, and they come back to the known world changed, and they're also able to change the world, right? The gifts that they have received or that they have won change the world, kind of like students getting new knowledge, right? And then we go back to status quo and we start again, right? And this is you can find this journey and this formula throughout all stories that really work. It's a very pervasive format for stories. And I don't know if you guys ever watched the show Community. There's a guy called Dan Harmon who created that, and he has boiled the story down to you. That's the character. They need something, so they go to search, then they find it and they have to take it, and they return and they change the world. So that's it boiled down in a nutshell. And this, as I said, this can apply to the learning cycle, and also it's helped me to plan the stories that I use in our class because it's a language that kids know, right? So some of the influences that I've come across and used in this journey, Joseph Campbell, I talked about, Hero with a Thousand Faces, one of the most important books, I would say, in storytelling and mythology research. Myths, I've delved into symbols that we all need to know and that we all do know. And then I'm counting part of my research, reading comic books, graphic novels. And then, I enjoy these movies just like anybody else, most people, I would say, and these are stories that really hew to the Joseph Campbell hero's journey. Star Wars, Luke Skywalker's journey is basically George Lucas created Star Wars based on the work of Joseph Campbell. I think Harry Potter certainly applies with him, over 7 years growing and actually dying and coming back. Of course, the Marvel stories are chock full of this. And then even children's literature is chock full of this. You think of The Very Hungry Caterpillar, going on a journey, gathering all these fruits. He goes to the pit of eating everything on, what is that, Saturday or Friday or whatever, the picnic. He gets a stomach ache. Then he goes into his cocoon, or his atonement is eating one nice green leaf. Then he goes into his cocoon, which is a kind of death, and he comes back transformed, a beautiful butterfly. So this knowledge is pervasive throughout all of it, and I guarantee you, your students partake in some sort of media that uh, you know involves this cycle. So, anyways, that is the influence on what I've done, and I'm going to move on now to why I did it. And I know you guys have seen these features for meaningful physical education experiences: social interaction, challenge, fun, increased motor competence, personally relevant learning, and delight. So, my um, generalization, my conclusion was that I could make meaningful physical education experiences for my students using storytelling as a provocation, because stories are personally relevant to them, right? Stories are how children learn. Um, you think of allegories all the way back to Aesop's fables, and every story has a meaning, has a moral. Not every story, I shouldn't say, but many stories have meanings and morals, and that's how students draw their learning, because it's interesting, it's relevant to them. Just a quick quote from this is from the Meaningful PE, or LAMPE website, learning about meaningful physical education. For physical education teachers looking to facilitate personally relevant learning experiences, it is important to help students draw connections between what they are currently learning and how it can be used in their daily lives. So that's actually, I kind of flipped this. I took what's in their daily lives and tried to connect it to what they're currently learning, right? So that was my rationale behind the use of storytelling as a provocation. So, how did I do it? Let's move on. First off, I started off with a timeline of my unit. I know you guys use timelines, and I know that you guys are, and I am too, more enamored of using the physical timelines. So it's up and always there. And I am also I'm partial to using the physical rather than a digital also. And I use a lot of stickies on it for like vocabulary and where it will go. Unfortunately, all my timelines were at school. I moved them into from my office to a like my space, my PE space, which is now you literally cannot enter the space because it's filled with all the furniture that we can't use in our school. So I'm showing you a digital form of my timeline right now, but I know you guys like to use the physical, and I think that's great. So this unit that I'm going to take you through is a movement composition unit. It was the third unit of the year. It was a level 3 integration. So it's how we express ourselves, the conceptual lens of expression, of course. Central idea was the same across the homeroom and music, and I think Arabic also. And the central idea: artists create to express themselves. And of course, um, in our context, we were talking about using our bodies to express ourselves, and communicators as the learner profile attribute. So the key concepts became mostly form, like what does it look like? These shapes and body actions and pathways, extensions, directions, levels, all of the movement concepts that go into creative movement. We were delving into them, exploring them, and figuring out what they look like, right? What does it look like when you're moving fast? How do you compare it to moving slow? What does it look like? What does bound flow look like compared to free flow, right? And then toward the end, when we had done a lot of exploration, and about halfway through, we started to try to link them together into stories, and you might even say dances, or just creative movements in a kind of through transformations. And you could even call them like movement sentences, right? I think I've seen that in PE books before. First I did this, then I did this, then I did this, and that's what it means. This is what it symbolizes, right? And of course, we had a related concept of creativity. We were really asking the kids to become creative. And the ATL we chose was information transfer and we'll talk a lot about this later because, as I said, it was a level 3 integration, and there was a lot of connection between all the other disciplines in our school. These DC outcomes are developmental continuum, which are kind of peculiar to our school, so it's not really that important for you guys, but just so you know what that is. I know a lot of people ask that. So that's for us, not for you. Okay, so I know here, so that was my overall planning. I'm showing you one of my lesson plans. I know you can't read that, don't worry about it. I can certainly provide you with an example if you are really interested, but I'm just putting it here to show you how I tried to connect everything, right? We've got our objectives and our learning, we've got objectives, learning engagements here, and the learning engagements connect to what's happening in the story. And I tried to connect the music to what's happening in the story, maybe by title or whatever music that sounds like what we needed to do, like maybe ominous music or quiet music or very loud and boisterous music, marching music, something like that. And of course, the equipment that goes into the design. And the design was all connected to the story as well. And then for the kinetic scale, during the year, I was going through 6-week periods where I was focusing on one kinetic scale for me. Just for me, I set up an area where I knew they would have to work on this area or this feature of the kinetic scale. And it was just so I was making sure they were getting a focused dose of that feature for 6 weeks out of the year. So that didn't necessarily connect, but sometimes it did. So let's stop here quickly for just a checkpoint and talk amongst yourselves. We're going to do a protocol called Connect, Extend, Challenge. I know we don't know that much about what I did yet, but just from what I've told you about storytelling and my preparation, how does storytelling as a provocation connect to ways you already teach in PE? In what ways does storytelling as a provocation extend your current thinking around physical education? And what do you feel is challenging or confusing about storytelling as a provocation right now?
For using storytelling as a provocation, currently, we found that it kind of happens naturally a lot of the time. And I gave an example of that today. We had speaking of a crazy week, we had a security guard got hit by a car today.
Oh, golly.
The bus bay was a little delayed, so I brought the kids to our play area. And it was a grade 2 class. And I was running around and on the play structure with them, and they just naturally created all kinds of different stories. So it kind of sometimes can flow naturally in your lessons if you let it happen.
Yeah, I think Andy, that's why we got into it, because I was doing that in class, but we just kind of made it more explicit for the kids later, yeah. And I'm going to talk about that coming up. Anything else? Any challenges? Any challenges?
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I was going to say for the provocation and connection that you already teach, I think if you're giving the kids an example or want to look at something, you always add yourself into a story or tell them something about yourself. Mightn't be a made-up story, but you're telling them about you, and you always give an example, and you maybe put yourself or another student in the story to let them understand the activity or what they have to do or what they could do as an opportunity or a possibility.
Right, making it relevant to them, right?
Yeah.
And so with that, Nathan, one of our challenges, I'll just connect it, is with our older kids, like grade 5 and 6. It might not be as easy, but if we, like what Nathan just said, if you let them create the story and make it relevant for them. So friends, and maybe Robin Hood throwing something at a target. You could create it to, I don't know, that was one example. Or if you connect it to being like pretend you're a professional baseball pitcher or something, and you're in the World Series or whatever it might be, but making it more personalized.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually, the student input piece that you just talked about is actually where I want to go. I have, like, in analyzing what I've done so far, I realized that I've created everything, right? And I've actually decided that um, storytelling is relevant to these kids. I mean, I think it's a pretty safe assumption. But then I went ahead and created all the stories. The students didn't have that much input into how the story was created, and that's something I want to change. So that you guys are already you guys are already there. You're ahead of the game, or you're ahead of me at least. So let's move on. Thanks for sharing, guys. Let's see. Oh, I was just looking up Donald Miller there, Sarah. So this is the story of my last year, because we decided to 2 years ago, the last unit of the year, we experimented with a story in striking, and then my goal for last school year was to make all of my 4 units. And actually, somebody was asking me about Alana was asking me about my units. I'm lucky enough to have 4 units during the year, which means we can go 8 to 10 weeks for each one, which really gives us a lot of time to go in depth. So the first story was called A Voyage Among Stars. It's about spatial awareness and traveling, moving, locomotions. We Can Be Heroes was kind of a unit about superheroes, or caterpillars that want to be superheroes. And like they need to level up in all these superhero skills like rolling, jumping, catching, throwing. So it's kind of a skill-based individual pursuits unit. We're going to go into Tales from the Magic Soup Pot, which is a movement composition unit, and it's an anthology of stories. So this didn't have one pervasive story. And then right near the end of this this story was COVID. So this last story was all done online, Strike Force training course. It's all about striking, and it's actually available on YouTube, and I can share that with you guys if you're interested. I know you guys, we might. I have a slide for it, but I know you guys aren't in distance learning, so it might be good for an example, but we'll see if it's relevant for you. So I just want to talk about how the design and the environmental design and storyline intertwine. So as I said, the first unit was about space. So, and we've talked about my meeting point here. There's a better picture of it that I didn't find before, I guess. This is the meeting place. That's a planet. And then you have the stars that were their personal space. And at the end of that unit, we were going into a holiday. We had this sort of ritual where we ended the story. We were planting some seeds. This was like a little space garden on a planet. These were the characters in the story, and they planted these seeds. And I told the kids, oh, something might grow here for our next unit. When we come back from holiday, let's check it out. And so this is a picture, as Andy pointed out, obviously pre-COVID, of the kids discovering the new meeting place, which has now become a garden. And you can't see very well, but these are just laminated pictures of the characters, the new caterpillars that grew in the garden, and they wanted to become superheroes. So that was a nice way to link the stories, and it really gave them like a clear through line. And we were coming back from a holiday, but I could show them the picture of what we did right before and say, remember? And then guess what happened? So it was a very like wonder inducing activity also. And obviously for 3-year-olds, wonder is a big part of their engagement, right? So that's one way that the design and the storyline intertwined. So we're going through Tales from the Magic Soup Pot. This was the third unit. Again, the meeting place has changed. This time it's not a planet. It's not a garden. It's a soup pot. I guess you can tell these are, maybe you can see these are the handles of the soup pot. And the reason it's a soup pot is because I started off the unit, as I said, this is an anthology of stories. It's not one pervasive story. We started off the unit with the story Stone Soup, where everybody's bringing in a piece of their kitchen that they've been hiding before to make this wonderful, magical soup, and also building community at the same time, right? So these were the title pages to our stories, and each story dealt with a different movement concept. You know, talking about actions or shapes or extensions or speed, time, energy. And every time that we finished the story, I would print out the title page and we'd tape it down inside. We'd put it in our pot. So our magic soup pot was kind of like our device for telling stories. You know, we add all these different movement concepts together and we can then use our bodies to tell stories. And this is kind of this design technique is based on a Reggio Emilia technique called traces, where the learning doesn't go away once we've moved on to something else, right? It leaves traces. So, and it's, you know, it's kind of a form of documentation. This is one way that you could do it. Obviously, usually our walls in the gym are documentation also. You know, I like my walls and everywhere where I'm documenting our learning to be a resource for the kids, to be a reminder, to be a remembrance of where they've been and where we're going, right? So,
Zach, Zach,
yeah.
can I just say something there? I just want to add one thought in, is that when you think about the self-assessments that you're getting the kids doing, the posters that you're creating, I just want to emphasize that I collect those posters throughout the year, and they actually stay on the wall. So what Zach is saying is this is an example of traces for learning for the older kids, so that if you're in a completely different unit, 2 units down the road, you can return potentially back to a former poster to show resilience, or to give examples of kids that persevered and improved their skills. So the posters that you're creating serve as a future teaching tool or a reference point. So that's an example of traces for learning in the older grades.
Right. Oh, you're in the learning pit right now. Remember, you were just at this spot 2 units ago, and look how much you grew, right? And you just kept trying, right? Something like that, you know? So I really, and I'm definitely a big proponent of the learning leaving traces, right? And if they're beautiful and wonder inducing, then all the better, right? So just this is kind of nuts and bolts. I have a smart board in my room, and these stories I was creating were via Google Slides. So you know, the smart board was used as kind of the storybook, and we would be in the guided discovery areas most of the time. So that's where we have big open spaces ready to move. So one story was called Wizard Against the Wind. And this is talking about time and speed, right? Or pacing. So the wizard is fighting against the wind. This magical wizard against the wind. He turns himself into a fast tiger. And then I'll pause the story, say, "Whoa, can you guys move like fast tigers? You know, take 2 minutes. Let's go. How fast can you move? And how safe can you be?" Right? Something like that. So we all become tigers at that point, and we explore the movement, and we come back. The tiger doesn't beat the wizard, or the wind, I shouldn't say. The wizard tiger doesn't beat the wind. So instead, the wizard tries to turn himself into a turtle. Then we take 2 minutes to move slow like turtles. We make the contrast. But the wind beats the turtle as well, and we move on. The moral of the story ends up that the wizard has to turn himself into a tree so that the wind just can't move him, and then they have to stay very still and make a tree pose. So just showing you how I do it in Google Slides. I'm thinking about moving on to Keynote possibly, because there's more animation possibilities in Keynote, but I'll keep you posted. It's hard to move on to a new format that I'm not familiar with, but I guess I have to, right, to keep moving on. And also I was doing a lot of writing in this. This is just a glimpse into my process, journaling. Uh, as part of my background, I actually didn't go to school to be a teacher or to be a PE teacher. I went to school, kind of a liberal arts education. I've been a lifelong poet. So this was a chance for me to like bring in my background. I became a PE teacher through an uncanny process of events, but you know I haven't forgotten about that side, and it's really good to bring it all in. I feel like I'm fully synthesizing all my talents using this storytelling as a provocation strategy. So just showing you the work that I put in, the journaling, and it wasn't easy. It is a lot of work, and that's why possibly it might be a better way to move on to using student voice, right? Because they do it for you. Okay, and then as I said, I use Google Slides. So this is just giving you more nuts and bolts approach. Also, I'm a big fan of this website Giphy. They have the GIFs. Some of them not all appropriate, but I actually go to the stickers, and you can see some of them here. There's GIFs which have a background, but the stickers don't have a background, but they do have movement, which just makes the stories even more engaging. And these stickers have been invaluable for me. So if you're looking for ways to spice up your provocations, I definitely recommend Giphy and stickers. Okay, so here are some examples of the frontispieces. Oh, sorry, Andy doesn't like that word. The title pages of the stories that we had. Going on a treasure hunt. We were exploring levels, and there was a very intricate design for this one where they had to go up a mountain, down a mountain, through a deep dark cave. They had to go through a river, searching for gold coins, so they were at low level. Really, this one was one of the more intertwined between environmental design and the story and the provocations. How to make a diamond. This was extensions. So the kids were actually in like a cylinder of mats. The mats are on their side, so they're standing up, but they're closed. It's a closed cylinder. So this is extensions. They start off like big boulders, moving large with large, arms out to the sides. They're extended. Then there's a magic sound. Or I told them they were in a rock tumbler. They didn't really know what a rock tumbler was, but all they knew was that the walls were closing in on them. So they had to change the way that they were moving, right? They can't move large anymore. They've got to get small. And so that was a way of changing the environment so to actually force the kids to make changes to their bodies, right? It's kind of a practical application of their skills, right? This actually, Yertle the Turtle in the Sky is the first story that Andy, I think you saw me give this story one time, but there was no visuals. It was just like a yoga story, kind of inspired by Jamie from Cosmic Kids, and yeah, I really liked how Jamie used storytelling too, but I didn't want to just put on her videos, right? I wanted to make my own. And it was kind of a body shape exploration. And then Andy actually noticed it and saw some kids disengaged, and we decided to try more visuals, and we saw an uptick in engagement, right? Children in the Statue Garden. This has a song to it also. This is talking about just very basic movement, moving and still, right? So some of the kids are statues, and they have to hold a body shape on a pedestal. And we sing the song, the statue stayed still in the garden, the statue stayed still in the garden, blah, blah, blah. And then the kids come, and the children, they're moving, right? But the statues have to stay still. So the children arrived in the garden, the children arrived in the garden. So they're kind of weaving in and out of the statues and admiring them like they're in the park looking at statues. And the statues have to stay still. The kids are kind of like, sometimes they'll be teasing them and stuff, and they have to stay still. So it was the kids really enjoyed that one too. This balancing act is actually a real story that you can find so many readings of stories on YouTube, and we'll act it out while we're watching it. And you saw those scales from the environment one, and we'd actually practice balancing on those scales and try to get as many kids on as we can and see what happens, and you can probably guess what happens.
Hey,
Um,
Zach,
yep.
sorry to interrupt. I just want to say one thing as an outside observer going in and watching Zach's classes. Yeah, it sounds like everything is tight and he knows exactly what he's going to do and the story is perfect. But in Zach describing it, it's very much experimental and exploratory. So Zach, even though he has that basic structure of the story, he allows that flexibility. He allows for fun, and he's engaged in a very fun way with the kids. So it's not like, Zach, you have the complete story in your mind. You're experimenting and exploring and having fun and kind of making up on the fly as well. So I don't want teachers to think that this story is perfectly laid out,
Oh, no.
every step of it. So I just wanted to emphasize, have fun with it, and the kids really enjoy that fun
Yeah, totally. And also another, like, building on from that.
exploratory aspect. And
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done, but you just cut out. You still talking, Andy, or no?
I no, I'm done. I'm done.
Um, so yeah, those are some examples. And also building on from what Andy says, I have also had 12 or 13 sections of this to do. So we did this 12 or 13 times. And the first time we did it was usually quite different from the last time. So we're constantly modifying between classes too. So, and I'm not married to like my original idea. If it's not working, I do something else. Okay, so now that's an idea of some of the stories we had, and as we were talking about personally relevant learning, connecting between disciplines, connecting what they're learning in the homeroom to what they're learning in PE class to what they're learning in Arabic class to what they're learning in music class, or if I did it again, I would go a step further and what they do at home, right? Or what they learn outside of school in the community. This was an idea we had to make a mind map, which is just a big cardboard square. I covered it with paper, and there's 4 pieces of paper. And I told you this was a level 3 integration, so we wanted to make the connections between the 4 disciplines more explicit. So each class had this with 4 pieces of paper for the homeroom, for the PE, for the Arabic, and for the music. And we were all talking about expressing ourselves. So how do we express ourselves in the homeroom? They would talk about it in the homeroom, add some pictures. Pictures very important, not words for this age. I wish we could. I mean, we did use some words, of course, but it's not as fulfilling for them at this age. I would glue on the students would glue on smaller versions of our title pages to our thing. The Arabic teacher talked about, doing art with some sort of Arabic theme, and the music teacher talking about the songs that they're singing, right? So we were making explicit that. Whoops, I didn't want to go there yet. We were trying to make it explicit to the children that there's connections. We can express ourselves here, there, and everywhere, right? We're expressing ourselves all the time in different ways. And then you guys probably, from working with Andy, are familiar with the check-in chart. This is made by the teachers. So to what extent have we unpacked expression? To what extent do we think that the connections are being made explicit? And to what extent do we think we accomplished our goal? I don't remember what the 3 questions were right now, but you can see there's a lot of yellow on there, so kind of midway. And we actually kind of finished this, but didn't finish completely right when we got busted with COVID. So,
So Zach,
yeah.
just one thing. So that's a traveling mind map. So that's a large poster with, as Zach said, each discipline, the classroom, and then PE, music, and performing arts. So that poster starts in the classroom, and then the teaching assistant brings the poster with the kids down to PE. So then Zach takes that poster, mounts it on the wall, and then adds PE's part. It goes back to the classroom, then it travels to another space. So it's called a traveling mind map. And
Yeah.
what a great way to collaborate with homeroom teachers and other teachers. So this poster travels between the classes, expanding on the ideas and making connections across the disciplines.
Yes. And the kids really, they take pride in like carrying it to the classes. The teachers can, you know, name a helper, make it a job in the classroom. That's part of positive discipline. So there's a lot of ways. I would definitely use these again, and hopefully we would get better at it, and also add in outside connections, possibly using Seesaw. So that's where I will be headed whenever we get back to somewhat normal. Okay, what else do we have here? So another feature of personally relevant learning experiences are choices, right? Democracy in action. We're training young citizens, right? So we talked about the mind maps just now. This was how we generated what we chose to put on our mind map. It was voting, actually, voting with your feet. So as we used our traces, we used our environmental design. We talked about all the stories that we have, gone through, and the children were asked to vote on their favorite, which one they wanted to reenact again, and also add to our mind map. So the one with the most feet on it would be the one that we did, and it was really great. The students took to it immediately. And they, actually, I had to. They were so engaged. Sometimes we had like little, squabbles. No, I want my story, my story. And then that was a learning opportunity for talking about communication, how we communicate, and how to maybe even negotiation, how to get somebody onto your side. Conflict resolution. There's all kinds of things that came out of this simple act of voting with your foot. So that was another part that made it personally relevant to the students, right? Made it meaningful for the students. And it's a way that we used our environment. It's a way that we used our teaching strategies and storytelling all together.
So Zach, sorry,
Yeah,
I just want to emphasize though,
go ahead.
voting with the feet can be done with voting with the hands. So if there's a gallery of traces for learning left on the wall, the kids are walking around the gym as maybe an exit ticket, and then they go to the point to something that resonates with them. So Zach did the voting with the feet, which was awesome. And there are other ways to do it as well.
Yeah, maybe they could have like laminated thumbs up that's their own, and maybe just even a piece of white tack, and on the way out, slap it on the wall. Make your choice. Make your voice heard, right? We're training young citizens. And it's so important, especially, well, I'm American, so around this time of the year, and especially this year, it's very important to vote, I'd say. The next slide we're talking about is the empty room. I could actually just go through this quickly. I think we did talk about this before, and this is like student voice, choice, and ownership, right? So this actually came about because of carpet cleaning in my space. We were going on winter break, and they were going to clean the carpets, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get my environment up to snuff when we came back right on Sunday. So I decided to try to take advantage of it. I saw a video, some sort of video one of my other petcos showed me about how an early childhood classroom just put everything out in the hall, and the students were to decide what's actually important for us, right? Because as teachers, sometimes, and I'm certainly guilty of this myself, I want to load up the environment. I want the kids to have as many choices as possible. But what's really important to them? That's what we tried to find out here. So the room was empty. You can see here. You can see the kids playing in the empty room, just using some streamers and music. And then we started having discussions about what do we need in our PE space for this. This was for a movement composition unit, but it was also not this last one. So this was pre-story. And we got a lot of answers. And then we didn't just leave it at that. So we started adding things in intentionally, and I would tell the kids, so here's what you asked for, here's what I was able to get, right? And then there were kind of like a lot of fantastical answers or stuff we just didn't have. So I informed them, sorry, I wasn't able to get this stuff, but I'll keep trying, And eventually we built up our space, and the children had a hand in it. And I think that was a very worthwhile exercise. I would do it again, especially if our carpets were being cleaned. Quickly we talked about movement sequences before, but using symbols. I'm a big believer in symbolic language for children. So all of these symbols apply to different movement concepts that we talked about. We talked about bound flow, move and stop, like the second hand of a clock, right? Move, stop, move, stop. This is like moving very strong, moving at high level, moving low level, moving small, moving slow like a turtle, curved pathways, moving large like a giant, straight pathways, fast. I believe this was light. Yes, like a what's that called? A dandelion being blown in the wind. And that was actually a GIF, but we can't make paper GIFs. And medium level. So then I just made like a very crude, looking at it looks just kind of trashy, movement storyboard. So they had a movement and then a transformation, a movement, and actually I would use the Transformers sound for their transformation also. And then a movement and another transformation and another movement. So now here you can see the kids like kind of explaining their story. They might say, oh, she's saying I was moving fast, then I got large like a giant, and then I was flowing free like water in a babbling brook. And this girl's kind of, I think she's showing like medium level. So they were creating at this point, and I didn't do this. I mean, I did. I set it up for them, but they chose, and then they showed, right? So they were viewing people's stories. They were presenting their own stories. They were critiquing their stories. We talk about, oh, what happened? Did she make the transition? Did she make the transformation? No. So that's what she needs to work on next time. Lots of things that can go into this. What else? This is, so we'll definitely skip this. This is the Strike Force saga. You guys aren't in distance learning, but I got really into video editing during the end of last year. And if you want to see a 10-part, hour and a half movie made on Google Slides, then I can give you a YouTube link. I'm kind of proud of it. I'm just a video editing geek right now, just kind of admiring my own work, but it's not necessary for you. What is necessary for you? Chatting. Given all you have learned in the past 45 minutes, so let's think about just this session. We're going to do another protocol. It's called Think, Puzzle, and what's the last thing? Explore, TPE. So, questions. What do you feel about using storytelling as a provocation right now? Maybe you already knew it, or you just learned it. What questions do you have now? What do you need to know more about? And where do you want to go now? What does this learning make you want to go explore? Go ahead and have a 3-minute chat.
Yeah, we were saying, like, with storytelling, it for sure is engaging for the students, and the students can relate to it, but it also keeps them motivated and interested in the activities because it's attached to a story.
What is attached to the story? I didn't quite catch that.
The students are able, with a story, they are more motivated to do the activities because it's connected to them, and there's a lot more motivation and engagement versus just like laying things out and then just saying, okay, throw feedback at the square or something like that.
You're actually entering into like a fantastic realm, I almost had a slide about duality, and you see it in the hero's journey. You have the known world and you have the unknown world, right? The known world would kind of be like, we've set some stuff out, go ahead, have a run, have a go at it, right? But then if we had the same setup, but we actually delved into the unconscious world, right, where stories come from, and instead of saying, go run across those, or go run between those cones, instead of saying that, you say, you guys are mice, and you're being chased by a giant cat down the alley. Get in there. Go, hurry, run. whatever you can come up with, like it just, you can see the difference, right? Go run between the cones, go run away from the cat, like it just changes the whole dynamic, really, so that's really what I use, what I think it's useful for.
That reminds me of an experience I had in Macau. We had this huge field, and on the outside, all around the field, we had like trees and benches and like little hills. It was pretty nice. So to use that one day, and it just came to mind. It wasn't something I planned for, but I got my grade ones to, and there was this like electrical box on the field. So I had them lined up, and I said, okay, before you could run around the field for your warm up, you had to jump and power up on the electrical box. So they would jump on there, they powered up, and then they had to give like their power pose. So they do like Karate Kid or whatever, and then they just ran, and then they just ran around like ninjas. So they were ninjas. They'd power up, do their pose, and then go through all the other side of the field. And it was a huge field, but man, they ran all the way around. Like they were motivated, and I'm certain it was the story factor that got them going, right? As opposed to me saying, warm up, do a lap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. It's it's just a difference in thinking, and now I am wishing you guys have actually made it clear for me, because we were talking about this slide yesterday, Andy, and what's the duality, right? The known world versus the unknown world, life versus death, chaos versus order, conscious versus unconscious. Of course we need to live in the conscious world, but the subconscious world, or the fantastical world, that's where we get all of our best ideas, right? Then we bring them back to the known world and change them and modify them so they work there, and we've innovated, we've changed the world, right? We've changed the story. So actually, you just crystallized that epiphany in my brain. Thank you. That was great. And Mark, I want to live your life, bro. You've been in Macau and now Singapore, two of my favorite places, man. Jeez. Great food in Macau. Okay, thank you so much, guys. We're going to go to just one last slide of and this is a takeaway, so we won't be doing this here. You can do it in the WhatsApp group, you can do it amongst yourselves. I'd love to hear your stories, and this is comprehensively for the 3 sessions. We talked about the philosophy behind meaningfully engaging bodies and brains. We talked about environmental design, we talked about storytelling. So what are your overall takeaways? How has your thinking changed? And we'll use the protocol. I used to think blank, but now I think blank. And you can do that at your leisure on WhatsApp, talking right now. I know you guys are headed out to the weekend, so probably you won't. But anyways, and I want to thank you guys. I didn't say this at the outset, but I really enjoyed working with you guys, and I really enjoyed watching you guys work together as a team. I was just telling Andy, your camaraderie and your spirit and your caring for the kids and your commitment is very admirable. So thanks for letting me try to share some of my ideas.
Yeah, and so Zach, that's what we agreed on was the 3 webinars, but Zach will still be in the WhatsApp group, and so I do want to thank Zach as well. And it's great that he can come and present this stuff, because this stuff is not being presented anywhere in the world in early years. So I'm going to keep encouraging Zach to present these ideas, because I think they're super relevant. So thank you, Zach, and thanks, Mark, for being open to have Zach present.
Oh no,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're very thankful to have you, Zach, and you should definitely be getting this out there. Like, this is
really good,
game changing for our little kids to be more engaged and start from the foundation, right? Like, as a PE teacher for about more than 50 years, it all, like everything, it starts with the little kids, and I think that needs to be most important. And I've worked in schools that would say, oh, it's all about the high school, we should have this first, and we prioritize this, and totally have changed that mentality to say, no way, man, we got to start from the bottom up. And I think this is powerful stuff. And I really appreciate you working with the team and staying in on the chat. Love to work more with you guys. I mean, I know we're going to be working with Andy all year, but would love to have you in on the convos and sharing ideas.
My pleasure.
It's been awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.